stillness, present time, gratitude, wonder, and connection. Those are the three things that I utilize for myself. I utilize for my clients, and I've been working on since 2016. Being in the present is one of the most healing, powerful, I would say, almost, I want to say spices that you can add to your life that will literally unlock gates that you had no idea existed within.
Welcome back to Leadershipedelics. Today I'm excited to bring you an insightful conversation with Kristin Taylor. Kristin is a certified microdosing integration expert and author of Integrate, a 3-month microdosing guide. Her diverse healing modalities incorporate applied positive psychology, Reiki, yoga, Nidra, somatic movement, shamanic drumming, and even equine therapy. As a single mom of 5, Kristin bridges her natural intuitions and teaching abilities to inspire and heal others. She works with sacred plants such as the blue lotus and the Amanita Muscaria, harnessing their powers to heal others. Her sole purpose is to guide clients to witness their authentic selves, unlocking natural gifts while embracing self-compassion and unearthing a higher purpose. Join us as we discuss breathwork, parenting, the influence of touch, Kristin's own personal spiritual journey, religion, compassion, the Mormon religion, and how she infuses her wisdom into the corporate sphere. Prepare to be enlightened as we delve deep into self-discovery and the peace that comes with it. So sit back, relax, and let's welcome Kristin to the show. Enjoy it and see you on the other side. Kristin, welcome to Leadershipedelics. It's so good to have you here today.
Thank you. I am very excited to be here. It's taken a while to get this, where we could actually meet.
I know. Aligning the stars. Well, it happens when it's supposed to happen. I like to think so. And it's easy to get carried away when you do a podcast and schedule everybody at the same time and then create a backlog. But, so you got to spread it out. And I think it just worked wonderfully this time. All lined up. How's your day going?
It's been so beautiful today. I mean, a little bit of a, huff a puff this morning, but I got to fulfill my 7-year-old's wish to go to a spa, and which is so funny. He's a Leo Gemini. And we went to a salt cave last week with my 3 youngest. Wow. I have a 9, 7, and 4-year-old with my second marriage, and I have a 20 and 17-year-old from my first marriage. And anyway, I brought the 3 youngest to this spa, quote unquote, salt cave. And while we were burying ourselves in this Himalayan salt, my 7-year-old goes, "Mom, when's the spa part start?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Where they do the massage and all that." And I was like, "They don't do that here." And he's like, "I really want to go to a real spa." And so today we did that at this local, it's founded by Brazilians who do feet, hand, and head reflexology. And there was a moment where I turned my head and I looked over and I saw my 7-year-old, and he was just taking these long, deep breaths while they were massaging his head. And I thought, what a gift to give. I mean, all genders, but especially my extremely active 7-year-old, this moment of connection and the ability to pause and be still. And he was able to be still and quiet and just let someone serve and touch him in ways that are comfortable and safe and healing. And I started out my morning that way today.
Oh, that's wonderful. So tips for parents out there: take your kids to the spa more often.
Yeah. During kid hour.
During kid. Oh, I didn't know they had kid hours at spas. I've never thought about bringing kids to spas. That's fantastic.
What's funny is this spa, after going the first time, I was like, I could do this at my house. So I did. I invited 6 women over to my home, and we got in a circle. And we brought our favorite lotions or whatever, and we did hand, head, and feet massages, and we rotated who we served. And most of the women said, first of all, this feels so good. Second of all, I wish my mom would have done this for me. Like my mom never did anything like this for me. And from that time on, I started doing it more often for my kids. And then recently I went
Oh,
to something that was presented by a local oil company, but they literally focused on serving your children, massaging their hands and feet, and using some aromatic healing oils.
hmm.
And I started doing that as well. And just that body connection, the aromatherapy, and talking to your kids and connecting in a way that a lot of times we don't even think about is a way to help self-soothe, a micro tool of learning how to reconnect, recenter, and be able to find ways of just, I guess, as parents, we don't think about how crucial, safe, and beautiful connecting touch can be for our kids, especially
Yeah.
when they're like 9 or 17 or 12 when we get really busy.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I can say from experience, I didn't grow up in a culture that connected with massage and spas. I grew up in France, which you would think maybe that was in that culture, but there was not none of that. And so when I got to the US, there was a lot more of that. But for my kids, I never thought about that. Like this is a beautiful gift you're giving your son and your kids. And then the breathing part. How did the breathing come into play? Like your son working with the breath at 7 in the
Yeah,
spa?
we
Like,
do that a lot at home. So at bedtime, I teach a lot to my clients already.
yeah,
Square breath, triangle breath, nadi shodhana. I mean, I know you're familiar, but the alternate nostril breathing, ways to recenter quickly and calm oneself. But I'm teaching my kids that already because my 7-year-old, my 9-year-old, all three of my three youngest have gone through a lot of shifts and changes that have been highly traumatic for
yeah,
them these past 3 years. Almost every kid has. The COVID
yeah.
era,
Oh
like,
yeah,
was like everyone has gone through trauma no matter what. And then add on to it, most families went through witnessing a death or partners breaking up, um, moving,
yeah.
sickness, not being able to see each other, having to wear masks, the fear state of everybody. And so being able to co-regulate and re-establish safety in the root chakra, I figured out, not just for myself, but also for clients. And then, of course, you've got to teach your kids these skills, because I've met so many adults who cannot co-regulate themselves. And if you're a child, if you learn it as a child, hopefully you'll keep
Mm.
using those skills moving up through the ages. Um, I've taught them to use it at bedtime. Of course, it serves me as well, because then they calm down and they fall
Yeah.
asleep quicker. So we have
Oh.
square breath and triangle breath that we usually work with the most because they're shapes. And my 4-year-old chooses triangle breath usually, and then the boys like square breath. So.
Oh. Do you introduce it to them with like some now like we're sharing tips for other parents, but like how do you introduce it to them in a way that the child can receive the message? Like, like if you do it the same way as your clients, they're probably like, yeah, that's not for me. I'm sure you have some way that works better for children. I mean, you use the shapes,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, with my clients, I have a diagram that I send them after, let's say I have a free 30-minute call. I'll always send them a graphic that shows the square breath really simply, where it says 4 seconds, breathe in, 4 seconds, hold, 4 seconds, breathe out, 4 seconds, hold. Try it 7 times. With the kids, I'll use my hand, 4 seconds, and I'll have them draw the square with me. 4 seconds,
Oh,
hold. 4 seconds. I ask them, do you know how to make a square? Or we'll do maybe 3 seconds because 4 might be long. And then I challenge them, how big is your square? 3, 4, 5. I used to teach middle school. And then
okay.
when the teacher had a baby, I ended up teaching the K-6 dance and health as well. I have a health background and Spanish teaching background.
Okay.
So I did that just for 1 year, but I really enjoyed it. And one of my greatest challenges, honestly, is being a mom
Yeah.
and not not taking on the emotions of my children. And I literally, plant medicine is something that has helped me personally be able to let go of a lot of shame of things that I have done that I'm not pleased about as far as what I've done as a parent. And as far as safe touch goes, in my family, there's a long line generationally of the vibration of sexual abuse. And so it wasn't comfortable in my family to, let's say, have a lot of physical touch. And so I would want to have a lot of physical touch, and craved being hugged all the time, and craved, and thinking, what's wrong? Why don't people want to hug me or whatever? And so teaching my kids at a young age of safe and beautiful touch, and that it's not something to not receive and not be given. And it's something that's really, really important to me.
Wow, that's very commanding work, like breaking the generational trauma, like being aware of it and breaking that. Like, I know a lot of people want to do that, but like they don't necessarily know where to start. And sometimes you think you're doing it, but it's like you need help too. It's because where do you pull from as a parent if you haven't received that experience yourself? I think that's where plant medicine can help too, is kind of breaking those patterns. In your own journey, so like let's talk a little bit about your own journey. I mean, I'd love to spend the whole episode just talking about exchanging parenting tips, and maybe we'll do more of that, because that's fantastic. I can't wait to start the square breath tonight with our daughter, because it's my turn to read to her. So that will be fun. Your journey. When did your cross path with plant medicine? Like I was reading your background, and you felt like you had a calling at some point to plant medicine.
Well, I'd say my first journey started in the DARE program in grade school, but that was misinformation. But then when I felt called to work with it was when I was at Mount Shasta in Southern California, or Northern California, sorry, Southern Oregon area. I was receiving my Reiki attunement, and I literally heard words in my head, whether it's my higher self or Lumerians or Mount Shasta or whoever, say, "Welcome home, Kristin. This is for you. I love you," when I was receiving my attunement. And it helped remove a lot of fear, a lot of judgment, and a lot of messages I had received from people from a religion that I grew up in and I loved so much. I had been warned about Reiki attunement, and then I received this message that's literally like, "Welcome home." And then I learned about extraterrestrials, and I saw pictures of Lumerians at Mount Shasta, and then my crown chakra got blown off. And also the shaman who has been in shamanism for well over 40 years, and had done the dieta, everything in South America. They mentioned that they might do later on in the year some plant medicine. And the woman that I was with doing the Reiki attunement, she's a therapist, and we both had been through a similar, very complex trauma the same year. And we discussed the benefits of what plant medicine could do to help us break through the difficulty of getting through that trauma. And just by literally mentioning, "I think we're going to do this sometime," it's almost like the mushrooms heard. And it sounds so silly and so woo-woo, but all of a sudden people were offering me, "Hey, do you want to try mushrooms?" And I mean, I had at least 4 offers to do mushrooms before I finally found a time for myself when I felt it was right. I did some training. I went through the therapeutic psychedelic program, and then I did microdosing, and then I felt called to actually do a deep macro journey.
So that's wonderful. How did you have any fear and anxiety as you approached those journeys? Because I mean, I spent a little bit of time in Utah. There was something big about not drinking tea or not drinking brews brewed by other people. Was there any apprehension as you were kind of approaching all this? Or like, I'm curious how you were, reconciling your upbringing with your new path.
Yeah. Well, I came from a background where I was taught not to drink even like Coca-Cola.
Okay.
Anything that even appeared to be, let's say, like I wouldn't buy a Starbucks hot chocolate because it appeared to be coffee, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I grew up very orthodox, but I also I believed in it. And I loved it. It brought me joy. It brought me safety.
Yeah.
And then there was a time where a lot of fear came out with COVID. I started not feeling at home in the religion. Then I go to Mount Shasta. Then I just thought I want to think for myself. And then I decided to step out of the religion and stop going, which to many of the religion, what I'd also been taught was that you might have been, something might have entered into you that's not of the spirit or of high vibration. And then I might have been deceived, other things like that. So I went through a lot of turmoil, a lot of dissonance, a lot of other things. But then I kept going back to my heart, knowing where my heart, why I was seeking out these things, and it was for healing and for my highest good.
Yeah.
And then I also have a dear man, and that was like a brother to me growing up, who's my little brother's best friend, who went through a lot of hardship, had to quit his job, was extremely suicidal, was going to have some children, and his anxiety was so great he couldn't work anymore. I had found out that he had tried plant medicine, and it had created healing within him where he was able to go back to work, was able to do things that he needed to do. And he's doing fabulous now. He's completely different, of course. Then I heard of my sibling, my little brother, who he's the one who literally said, try it out, go for it and go for it. Like he was like, do as much as you can when you try your macrodose. That way you can't control it. Anyway, I wouldn't recommend that to everyone, but that was his advice. And then
that's great.
As far as the brewing of teas for people, I've never heard that. It could be where they were like not sure that maybe you were giving them green tea, because we usually didn't drink black or green tea or coffee, but we could drink herbal tea. But maybe some families aren't okay with herbal teas. But I had no issue when it was time, and I felt called to drink my mushroom tea. I prayed over it. I called in my guides. I felt very, very prepared and very excited, nervous and excited to connect with Mother Earth and to dive deep into what it was that I was meant to learn about myself, and hopefully be able to start the path of reconnecting to my highest self, and also to release a lot of judgment of self and of others as well.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing. And I asked because I grew up Roman Catholic, and there's a lot of indoctrination as well. And so, when you proceed working with plant medicine, there's always a lot of questions that arise. It's like, how does that work with my religion, with what I was taught? How do I reconcile all of this? And, like in my case, it actually brought me closer to, what we would call God, or, that connection with everything. Some of the things, we would pray to as kids, and I wouldn't understand. So I'm curious also, as you went through this experience, like, did it change also your relationship? You mentioned like Mother Nature, but did it change your relationship to like a higher power? Mother Nature is a higher power. Your higher self too is another one. Like, or were these already there before? Like you mentioned Reiki. Was Reiki new to you, Reiki energy healing, when you went to?
Yeah, it was very much new, but it was very much familiar.
Okay.
If people listen to this who are my family or of my former, so there's still so many beliefs of the Mormon religion and the doctrine that I still hold dear to my heart. Those of like treating others with kindness, the teachings of Jesus, I hold very dear. My religious views have shifted significantly. I believed before in eternal families where you were sealed to a spouse. And if you kept certain rules and commandments that brought you quote unquote happiness, and if you lived these things, then you would be with your family for forever. It's a beautiful, beautiful promise. I tried it twice. And I'm divorced twice now. I still love the men I was married to. I'm grateful I got to co-create with them. I did my very best to live all of those rules, and I believed in them, but it didn't work out. And then my belief in a Heavenly Father, the Heavenly Father that I was raised to believe in, I loved him so much. And it was easy though, because I had a dad who I loved, and he was nice. Yeah. And he was easy to love. And so it wasn't hard to believe in a white man who lives in the sky, who looks over me and knows everything that's going in my life and can love me. It felt safe, it felt comfortable. Sometimes I miss him still because that's who I talked to my whole life. If I felt sad or alone or scared, I would talk to this man in the sky who is my Heavenly Father. So what's happened and shifted is I do believe that there's still higher power, that there's still spirit, that there's still creators. And there's times where I pray to Elohim, the gods, or Adonai, multiple gods. I'll pray to sometimes the Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother, when I'm feeling lonely, or I'll call out to the creators. Sometimes I'll call them love. I feel more comfortable and confident. I have more trust, even though I know pretty much not what's going to happen anymore. I feel more open and understanding of everyone and their backgrounds. And somehow, even though I have no plan for what's in the future, almost, I'd say 98% of the time, I have peace of it's going to be okay. And there's no explanation why. Whereas before, I would say I was doing it, quote unquote, everything that I could to do what was right. And I sat in a lot of worry and had a lot of anxiety about that everything was going to be okay. Now I trust that what happens for a reason. I co-create my reality. My kids have their own higher self within them. And even though I've effed up quite a bit with them, it was part possibly of their karmic path and journey, as well as my path and journey. And I have seen within ayahuasca, even, and within psilocybin deep journeys, the genetic reasons for why I pulled in, let's say, a partner to co-create and love these beautiful beings. Whether it's true or not, it gives me peace, and it was so fabulous and so beautiful that I'm just so grateful. And I could see not just my children in the medicine, but I could see generations of generations within my children of what it took to get to the point to create those children. And I believe in the greater good for humanity. And there's times where I'm so caught up in 3D and being human and oh, I've got to provide and I don't have a home yet and da 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 da. And then there's other times where I mean, even today I found this thing has been around forever, this little thing, and it says cha-ching and has $20 on it, right? And it's been sitting around a lot. And I'm like, why is this still around? And I literally just wrote my Reiki master and shaman who attuned me yesterday. He just wrote this whole thing about healers and how they charge for money, why they can charge for money. Da, 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 da. His wife did a regressive hypnosis with me. While I was in the regressive hypnosis, she asked, and how are you going to be like, are there any concerns with money? And I was deep, deep, deep in this regressive hypnosis, right? Yeah. And I remember smiling. I have it recorded, and I go, and I hear cha-ching. And then right before our interview, here it is, cha-ching on it. And I saw money raining down from the sky in like full-blown, deep, like regressive hypnosis therapy. Oh. And I like just started laughing before our interview. I was like, why is this thing around all the time? Why can't I get rid of this? And I look, it goes cha-ching. And then I literally just thought of that yesterday, cha-ching. Oh. And it's gonna be okay. And I have no explanation how.
I love it.
And so, yeah, like the way that believing in a God, I now believe in multiple gods. I now believe in whatever brings, like I believe in the brothers and sisters that are in China that believe in their gods. And when one believes in something, I believe that it brings a power and force that can uplift the vibration of the earth, much like the holographic universe book. Like when many, many people believe in something, it can bring something forth. And so maybe mine's undefined currently, but I believe in love. And if enough people believe in love, then it's enough to bring the power and vibration up as well.
The power of love. And it's such a spectrum too. The spectrum of love. I think there's no doubt there's enough people believing in love right now. We probably need more, really understanding the depth of love too. That's one thing with psychedelics. It's like there's love as you see it depicted on Netflix or, on TV, which is the very, I would say, simplified version of love for the masses, that's very black and white and easy to understand. And I think after you go through a psychedelic journey, you're like, oh my God, it's all about love, and it's a spectrum, it's a rainbow, and there's all those different ways to appreciate and love each other. Another thing you touched on implicitly is surrendering. I think, I felt like when you were recounting your story, there's a little bit of an irony, which is when you were doing everything you had to do, like it didn't seem to necessarily lead to where you wanted to be. But once you finally surrendered yourself, you felt more connected to even more than before. Which, it's a beautiful, beautiful journey there.
Yeah. I still have a hard time surrendering sometimes, obviously. And I still think, oh, this is how I want it to happen, or this is what I want to occur. And yet, anytime I go back to that, I feel like that's what, if you're to do a journey or work with plant medicine, the integration is key. You don't just go do a journey and then pop back into life. And I think that's what's so important is the remembrance, the going back, and even recognizing or wondering, now what's my takeaway now from that journey 4 or 5 months ago? What have I integrated so far? What can I use from that currently? And what am I doing today to further the work? I find there are many that get so drawn to, and I've done this with rape, to be honest, like it gets so easy to just drop into rape instead of just dropping into my medicine, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. It's not easy for everyone, Rapi, but it's not easy for me. But it makes sense.
So finding a medicine that's very comfortable, where you can drop in quickly and connect to high self or spirit or meditate. There are many who do journeys monthly or every other week, especially those that don't have maybe kids. When you have kids, you have to be, you've got to really like plan around and be highly like selective, and it doesn't quite come as intuitively like, I am supposed to do it today, it's going to happen. I did like in training that they mentioned maybe quarterly or twice a year. It's good for a reset as far as macrodosing goes. But, and there are people that maybe, follow what your soul says, but I think there needs to be the idea, and at least from my perspective and my opinion, it's not to be trifled with. It's sacred. The least amount that brings you the most benefit, that also brings a sacredness to the connection to self and to whatever it is that your intention is for your highest good and the highest good of all.
Yeah, I love you touching on the frequency here of journeys. This is always like, I feel we all have different steps in our journeys, like different phases, and maybe at the beginning people might feel like, oh, I need to do it more often, and then I've seen, like in my case, it's like I was doing it a lot at the beginning. A lot might be once a quarter. Now it's like once a year. And when it's of service for others mostly, but I think that's really important, because we scatter the importance of the ceremony if we do too much. We don't have, as you're calling out, we don't have time to integrate the learnings, which sometimes might take months to realize. It's like, oh my God, like that was the lesson this ceremony was trying to teach me. And you need that unfoldment and almost that surrender, but the work at the same time. It's like, there's the climbing the mountain when you're doing your ceremony, but then there's another mountain afterward that's even bigger, which is that integration mountain. And how did you integrate the learnings from Mount Shasta, like afterward? Like how long did that take you? Like, are there some tips you got from that? I mean, your work now is helping others, with microdosing, and I'm sure with integration and preparation as well. So I'm sure you have a lot to share, but I'm really curious about that first journey you had. How did you integrate that, and how long did it take?
Well, what's interesting is I didn't do any journey work in Mount Shasta. Those messages came through just through my Reiki attunement.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of finding stillness. When I found out the things that broke in a way and shattered my heart in February 2020, the messages came through several venues. Be still, be still, be still. Caroline Miss. And literally in one of her talks, I look at the clock, it's 1:11. I go, okay, I'm supposed to pay attention. And right then she says, and when you are still, that is when you break through the firewall and you meet God. And I was like, okay. And I'd already received a journal from a friend that said, be still. I go to church the next day. The song is Be Still My Soul. And I was like, okay. And I'm still working on it. Stillness does not come easy, especially to Americans, especially to this generation, especially to teens. We're circling right back up to watching my son laying there, being massaged and breathing deeply and relaxed. Stillness, present time, gratitude, wonder, and connection. Those are the three things that I utilize for myself. I utilize for my clients, and I've been working on since 2016. Being in the present is one of the most healing, powerful, I would say, almost, I want to say spices that you can add to your life that will literally unlock gates that you had no idea existed within, just by being able to learn how to be still.
Yeah. So in our society where we're moving so fast, how do you get somebody to appreciate the present? I mean, a client comes to you, and that's probably maybe on top of your list of helping them appreciate the present. How do you go about that?
Well, first of all, I ask them about, it may not seem like the present, but I ask them of a moment where they have had the most joy, or what brings them the most joy. They usually can bring that up to mind, and then a few of the senses that are involved with that moment. And then I ask them to recreate that in a similar fashion with like music or visuals, creating art, or going outside. Nature is the number one way that you can be pulled into the present very quickly, music and dance and movement. So I challenge them to do those types of things daily. And I literally, it's like a 2-minute to 3-minute challenge.
Yeah.
I like to start with micro steps, micro tools, and just reminding them that they have the power to be still. Breath work is essential for the stillness as well. So the breath work, I call it nature bathing. That's a Japanese term. I don't remember the name in Japanese, but nature bathing, and then just finding ways to turn off and disconnect from the electronics. I personally have found that I get thinking that it's important that I stay connected to my electronics. Oh, this person will feel bad if I don't respond immediately. Instagram and LinkedIn, this is important for my business because I'm an entrepreneur personally. And having self-boundaries. So boundarying out the hours that you're actually on. And I find that when you are boundaried, that people actually appreciate and recognize it, and they don't take offense if you're boundaried with your hours on your electronics.
Yeah, I found the same. You get respect from, I mean, some people you might not, but like most of the people that, you know, like I've connected with, you get respect from setting those boundaries. I think it's respected more and more. Funny thing about LinkedIn and Instagram, I think we connected. I don't know how we connected, either LinkedIn or Instagram. We're both active on those platforms. And I saw one of your posts on Instagram where you were dancing in front of your kids. And, I think one of the kids acted or looked embarrassed by your dancing. And I was like, I love it. It's like, I embarrass my kids too. My 14-year-old is so embarrassed. It's like, Dad, please don't do this. But, you know, you filmed it, which is great. I loved it. There was so much good energy, and it's healing too. That dancing is healing. And have you gotten your kids to dance with you? Do they do that as well? Or do they like, no, Mom, this is for you?
The younger two and my 17-year-old will. The 9-year-old currently is in this very self-conscious stage.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, this morning my daughter was like, oh, what's that song? And she put on I Will Survive. And instantly I couldn't help but start, disco dancing. And then my 4-year-old closes her eyes and starts doing like the kicking, like it's very Russian or Slavonic or Ukrainian type of movements.
On the ground with her legs. They're going like that.
It was amazing. And then
Love it.
So we're all kind of, moving and to the song that's a very powerful song. And so we had some great moments this morning.
This is great. I need to learn how to get my kids to dance with me. I think that the 5-year-old she's getting there, but the other ones, the two oldest boys, I'm like, Dad,
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, the Just Dance, I mean, my boys right now are playing a lot of Just Dance.
Just Dance is the playlist I listen to on
Okay.
Spotify. They have a Just Dance Unlimited playlist, and I play the game too. But yeah.
Well, when I say the only electronics allowed at any time is Just Dance, then it makes it so that they play that quite a bit. So at least they're like moving their bodies that way. And yeah.
It's a fantastic game. I love it. When during COVID, I played this. I did all the dances on it. I think there was like 600 then, but I went through all of them. This was like a daily Just Dance.
Yeah.
I get to start the day like that because it's good for trauma too. Like, shaking your body is supposed to help like heal
100%.
trauma.
Yeah. Somatic movement is essential. I mean, when you can get to a point of ecstatic dance versus choreography, you're really, really getting to a point of being 100% in the present, like shutting off different parts of your brain and really being able to be almost like primal and releasing a lot and being highly connected to emotions. I grew up dancing since I was 3 years old, and all mostly, choreographed, of course, but what I've been learning is to release what I look like, especially, I mean, I'm 45 now, and that's been one of my goals, and that's what psychedelics has helped me out with a lot as well, is releasing what other people think about me. I still have a little bit with my family, as I mentioned. Well, if my family or my neighbors listen to this, but I mean, I'm so close, and it's been a huge, huge shift for me because that was I was raised to really represent my family. My dad was a religion teacher for 38 years. My grandpa was a religion professor at BYU, which is a religion. It's a school that's owned by the church, and I'm the oldest of 8 kids. So as the oldest, you already feel responsible to represent, but then when you're literally told you represent our family and we represent the church, there's a bit of a responsibility and then you start worrying about what people think about you because you are representing what you believe in, what you feel strongly about, and you don't want to make anybody think badly about what you've been taught is really important, will bring everybody to salvation. If that makes sense.
Oh, I lived in Utah for a while, so
that's a lot of a lot of pressure and a lot of this deconstruction of it's okay to be your authentic self and believe that I'm a good person regardless of my mistakes.
Yeah, there's a lot of social pressure down in Utah. A lot. I don't think people realize how much there is who haven't lived there, but it's huge. And it's, from my experience there, it pushes people to extremes as a result. I mean, what would you tell people who are, like judging, like how can they make it easier on you? I mean, you have to do your own work. And you have to stop worrying about what other people think. But is there a message for those other people as well? Of, whether it's like a message of compassion or, what would that message be?
Yeah, well, what's interesting is I've been in their position. My first husband left the church while we were married, and I would cry every Sunday because I was sad. It was our eternal marriage that was going to be destroyed. And I was a very, very firm believer. And I would pray that he would come back to the church all the time. So I find my life is really interesting because I'll like see something go, yeah, that'll never happen to me. And then I experience it. I personally would recommend that if they want something to pray for, pray that whoever they pray for, that, and this is what I'm going to be asking my mom soon, is that she'll just pray that whatever will happen for me is for my highest good.
Yeah.
Instead of praying that for something that she wishes would happen for me, that she thinks is best for me. And it's all out of love. And that's also for people who leave the church. The best advice I got from a friend who had already left, she said, just remember, everyone is doing everything because they love you.
Yeah.
And that's another thing about Mormons, is they're really good people. And they're really trying hard to live what they believe in. And that's to be really, looked at with a lot of respect. Because the people that are living what they are trying to, something that they truly believe in, and there's a lot of sacrificing going on. It's something to be respected, not to be like made fun of. And a lot of times when we leave the church, we make fun of it quite a bit, just because maybe it's easier to make fun of than to be like, wow, I respect people who can live what they truly believe in, whether I believe in it or not anymore.
Yeah.
And so those who see me and go, oh, I feel maybe bad for her, or she's lost, or maybe she has an evil spirit in her, or she was deceived, or because of the traumas she went through, obviously it's really hard for her to be a member. A lot of those reasons make them feel okay, because it's hard to start thinking outside of the box. But I have friends who are Mormon who think outside of the box and are perfectly happy being Mormon. In fact, the one friend that went to Mount Shasta with me, I know other Mormons who do psilocybin journeys and feel completely okay with it. I think that's something that's beautiful. I personally did not feel comfortable thinking for myself and going outside the box and being Mormon, just due to the way that I had worshipped and the way that I believed. And because I was such a black and white, very white Mormon, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's people who are comfortable living in gray and enjoying being in gray, and enjoying the community and enjoying the people and enjoying all of that. And yes, it is for some people very strange, and for other people it's like, this is really fun and I love the community. And my 9-year-old and 4-year-old, they like going to church, so I have them go to church. And now though, instead of, and this will be for anything, I'm going to ask my kids, what did you think about that? Did that resonate for you? What are your thoughts about that? Instead of, this is what is true, or this is what is this. And that goes for even my own opinions. I'm going to try so hard to remember to say, this is my opinion. This is what I believe. And it's okay if you don't believe the same. And what's your thought on it? And try to be really open to, like, just being an open book and allowing everybody to have their own opinions and beliefs.
Yeah. There's a certain underlying inner peace, I feel like, in your message. It's like the piece of accepting the different opinions, and then finding that inner peace, knowing that also not everybody is agreeing, but also the love that we all have for each other, or in your community, a lot of people have for each other.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful message. I do want to shift gear because there's so many other things I want to touch on. I do want to get educated a little bit on two of the plants you're working with, or one is fungi and the other one is a plant. And the Amanita muscaria, or fly agaric, and the blue lotus. And I'm so curious because I've tried working with Amanita muscaria, and I'm still a little child in the journey there. And then I have no idea about the blue lotus. And you mentioned you're doing some work with them, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that work.
Yeah, I would love to. So, being how I live in Utah and I have kids, and I have worked with psilocybin and wachuma, and I've been honored to sit with peyote. I was invited to sit in a peyote ceremony as well. Currently, my family came around and was just like, Kristin, you've got kids, you're a single mom, you're taking a risk, because currently in Utah, it's not legal. And so I put aside, I also was mentored with NN-DMT as well. put all of that aside as far as plants that I personally work with and sit with. And I've chosen to work with plants that are conscious, that also can have psychedelic effects, but I work with them on a microdose scale, and that are currently legal here in Utah. And so the Amanita muscaria, I was led to that personally for lowering inflammation. It's recommended to help possibly with epilepsy, which I have temporal lobe epilepsy. And a group that I was working with as a practitioner, which the background is from mycology, psychology, I was led to, what's funny is I always get inspired to think, okay, this is what I'm going to work with. And then they would say, hey, we've decided we're going to work with this plant. So we were always in line. And I loved that about mycology, psychology. They are a fabulous group of practitioners and inspired people. And we're still very much in love with each other. So the Amanita muscaria, the producer that I personally work with, the one who creates a tincture, is Michael. His first name's Michael, all things Amanita. And the main active ingredient is muscimol. I probably hacked that, but I chose to work with Amanita, as I mentioned, for the inflammation, helping out with epilepsy a little bit. And then I had no idea what this plant or this fungi could do until, starting to work with it. The first week I started microdosing Amanita, I cried every day. And I would cry and cry and cry. And a memory would come up and I would cry. But it was like those storms that come through and wash through, and everything is clearer afterwards. And the crying was without shame. It was just refreshing. And a lot of inner child work started happening. And I fell in love with Amanita. I have found it's extremely unique, sensitive, and Michael literally calls it a spiritual, what is the word? Adaptogen. So he's like, he'll take it and it'll go to his head and help out with head things. His wife will take it helps out with her heart. I've found with clients, one client takes 1 drop and they're like, whoa, it was so much for me. I have another client who takes 10 drops and feels nothing. And so, I mean, it's been a very unique fungi to work with, especially with clients. It does not like alcohol. So I warn my clients, if you drink alcohol, please don't consume it with Amanita. And then I have clients who are trying to get off of alcohol. So they're wanting to lower their alcohol consumption. Then we work with Amanita. It works with addictions as well.
Wow.
And it's just been a really, really unique fungi to work with. And then the blue lotus, that one came to me in a dream. I have one of the flowers right here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for people watching, there's a dried blue lotus flower. Yeah.
I work with the tincture as well as the tea, the flower. But I have a card set called the Herbal Astrology Oracle. And the first night that I worked with the deck, Blue Lotus came through. I read the description. I went to bed and I had a dream about Blue Lotus. I mean, I had 6 different cards though. So it could have been, anything. And it was a woman in a locker room, and she had a bag full of Blue Lotus, and she was looking in the mirror, and another woman was behind her observing. Usually women in a locker room, it's just not a place where you're appreciating what you look like. So she's looking in the mirror. She had a circle.
It's the same with guys in the locker room too.
Okay. All right. So we're all we're all there. She had a circle around her third eye, and it looked like a flower, like a blue lotus flower. And she was pulling out blue lotus out of the bag, and she was dropping it, and then she was just like eating tons of blue lotus, and it was entering this circle here, and then she was consuming it. And I woke up and I said, I think I'm supposed to work with blue lotus. And then it just started happening, where I kind of, like when I said I think I'm supposed to do psilocybin, and then people invited me with psilocybin. Blue lotus pulls, at least me personally, into the present. It's known for its aphrodisiac properties. I personally have found, joking around, I was like, this is like a female, what is the male blue pill?
Viagra?
Viagra. I was like, this is like the female Viagra. They don't make Viagra for women. Well, for me personally, I was like, wow, this works really well. And like 3 drops of the tincture for me before bed, let's say. A lot of just, it helps with anxiety. Also helps with more lucid dreaming, or just opening up third eye. But if I take it during the daytime, I find myself being more relaxed and more open, and very much in the present. So you asked me, how do I help clients be more in the present? Sometimes, especially if they have been through complex trauma, microdosing is one of the ways that aids them, along with the micro tools of breathing, dancing, nature. So I call them stacking practices. Micro tools along with the microdosing, retraining the brain, pulling aside the patterns that are no longer healthy, and restacking, building a foundation, so that in time they will not need the psychedelic medicine, and they will be able to do it on their own.
I have a follow-up question on the Amanita Muscaria, and on the Blue Lotus, and on the clients. But we'll start with the Amanita Muscaria. Can you use it for lucid dreaming as well? Have you tried that aspect of it?
I have taken it. I didn't notice personally, and I haven't had clients using it for that, so I wouldn't be able to speak on that personally.
Because I tried as well, and I didn't notice anything. And but I'd heard it's supposed to help with lucid dreaming, so I was really curious. I was like, because they grow everywhere here as well.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. And one thing, a lot of people, I recommend always look up all of the health conditions, and for some, even for psilocybin, or the Amanita Muscaria reaches different receptors than psilocybin does. So it can be safer for certain people than, let's say, psilocybin can be. But macrodosing Amanita can be extremely different, and not anything like a psilocybin. And then also you've got the other active ingredients that can make you very sick.
Yeah.
So the reason I trust Michael and all things Amanita, I know the process in which he clears out all of the poisons that could, make you really react. But I've had personally clients react to Amanita Muscaria with 1 or 2 drops. And it could be that they have maybe intense mold. If you have radiation poisoning, you're going to react to it. Or let's say severe liver issues. And then I've had 2 clients that are doing testosterone. We haven't confirmed it yet, but it was just too much of a, this is interesting, but they were doing testosterone injections, and both of them got quite sick with just low dose Amanita Muscaria. So, if you get a fever, or you break out in hives, or you're like, I don't feel so good, with 1 or 2 drops of a microdose, it might be in your mind, but also even if it's in your mind, then it's just telling you maybe this isn't your personal medicine. Like NNDMT, I was working with a mentor, but even through multiple, working with it, it just didn't feel like home.
Yeah.
And so I stopped working with it because it's not home for me.
That's a great call. One on Amanita Muscaria being potentially dangerous if it's not prepared correctly, like really dangerous.
When there's other vendors currently who are mixing it with other, you might not know everything that's within the tincture, or let's say they're making gummies or putting it in chocolate. There are some vendors currently that are lacing it with other items, maybe with some psilocybin or other things that you're not aware of. And so I know that this is like, seems like I'm promoting all things Amanita, but I'm not paid by him. I receive nothing from him. It's literally, I found a trusted vendor, and it's not illegal, but always consume with caution and look up all of, personally, I have epilepsy. I take seizure medications. There's certain things I cannot work with. And I have a client that's bipolar who did not disclose bipolar and did a macro dose of psilocybin and went manic for over 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And, she was referred to me afterwards. And so we've been working on stabilizing and things like that. But I'm not going to have this person microdose with psilocybin. We're just not going to work with that.
I mean, that the whole intake process and telling the truth when you're going through the intake process, that's huge. We did a retreat back in October for ayahuasca, and that was a huge part of it. Like, we have to screen everybody on there. And we started doing brain mapping there, which actually allows us to do screening for certain preconditions that wouldn't work with the medicine. You talked about your clients, and you do a lot of work with, I think, companies and leaderships and like people at work. Can you talk about that aspect of your work and how you're helping them kind of, bring that love and that connection and kind of this new approach to enterprises and companies?
Yeah, the main work I do with corporations or corporate clients, exec suite type clients, is mainly teaching them micro tools. If they are microdosing, then I help them in tweaking their microdosing, also setting intentions. Why are they doing this? What's their purpose and intention for it? A lot of exec suite leadership have no idea that how powerful gratitude work is. There's been surveys out there that have literally found that most people don't care. I mean, they do care what they're doing, but if they feel like they are valued where they work, they and feel appreciated, they are more willing to work, and the turnover is so much less. They have better output, and they're more loyal in the place that they work. I mean, I personally don't appreciate this, but most people spend most of their life at work. And if that's where they're spending most of their life, then why not raise the morale? Why not raise the way that people are able to be invested in themselves while they're at work? So we work on mindset, stabilizing practices, breathwork, mindfulness, and then especially gratitude, wonder, and connection. And then we can work with the Blue Lotus. We can do Blue Lotus ceremony or something like that, the Amanita Muscaria. And I do love to speak publicly, like do a big, get all of the employees together and teach them the breath work together. There's something so powerful about having an entire group breathing at the exact same time and putting in an intention for their highest good. And even, let's say, for the company to meet their quarterly goals and exceed them, so that everyone can have their intentions of what they desire for themselves to be able to be manifested, wishing abundance for all in that room at the same time. And so by doing so, it just can also it's like uplifting the entire vibration of a corporation within one 1 hour session. And nobody recognizes the intensity and the power that can actually provide, and also, of course, the monetary gain that it can provide.
After, so do how long have you been working with corporations for? Like, did you start before COVID or?
I started in 2019, and immediately I started speaking. I was invited to speak at Amazon corporate. It was to the women's group. And then I started out pretty big and strong, getting invited on podcasts a lot. And then I co-created a women's event. We had 200 guests, February 22nd, 2020. And that was also the day that I made some really huge shifts in my life. And then COVID went bam and pretty much shut that down. So I still did a few virtual events speaking, but then I also was completely wrapped up in court cases and a lot of self-care and nurturing during that time. I also had in 2022 I wasn't able to drive for 9 months due to seizures, and so there's just been a lot of nurturing, and I call it the womb phase. Death, deconstruction, deterioration, relearning, rebirthing. And what I love about psychedelics is when I was doing my training in the therapeutic psychedelic certificate program, when they came in about microdosing and the benefits of microdosing, and they were listing the benefits, it was literally what I spoke about before. And I was sitting there and I was just saying, because I would talk about breaking negative thought cycles, overcoming rumination, increasing gratitude, wonder, connection. And I'm watching these brain scans of people with anxiety and depression, and it looked like someone, and he literally said, it's like someone takes a shovel and like digs straight through the brain, the neurons and the dendrites, and cuts them off. And that's why you can't get out of the anxiety or the negative thought loops, because there is no way for them to communicate anymore. And then he brings out a scanning. He's like, this is a scan after, instead of like, this is a brain on drugs with the egg. Any questions? And instead he's like, this is a brain scan with someone who's been microdosing for 3 months. And it showed the dendrites looking like tree roots that were, growing back out and connected and communicating. I mean, you can't see that part, but you could see the dendrites literally. And I was sitting there watching this, listening, and I literally thought, this is exactly what I was teaching about before, but it's an enhancement, if that makes sense. It's like stop and wonder 2,000,000.2 versus stop and wonder 101.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, I mean, before you were teaching people through breath and through knowledge, but now you're able to also add a new set of micro tools or microdosing to that. Like, I feel like, you can teach people. I mean, I've done breath work before, psychedelics too, but like once you get hit with psychedelics, it's almost like transcending and helps, I mean, they talk about the default mode network and rewiring patterns and brain plasticity. Like I love how you're saying it's like people can't get out of those connections. And paraphrasing what you're saying is like when they're feeling anxiety, when they're stuck in those patterns, like it's almost like those tools help rewire the brain. I mean, there's science now, that show that you talked about the science. There's article coming out all the time. It's amazing. I love it. And it doesn't work the same way for everyone, which is also something you're talking about. Like for me, microdosing on psilocybin, I was like, okay, like it helps me with this. But I was depressed at the time. And then I went microdosing on Wachuma and I was like, this is awesome. And so it's like, it's something for everyone, but it's important too. Like it comes time and time again after everybody I talk to is like the research, doing your work, being truthful, being heart-led, and not forcing it in too. I mean, that's another thing is like, I feel
number one, not making it happen. It will happen when it's meant to.
Yeah. It's like that natural unfoldment of like, hey, nudge a little bit here and there. I mean, plant a seed that I need some help here. Plant a ka-ching seed over there.
Yeah.
I love this. It's like it's such a mundane, normal, important problem that we're all, I think everybody working with medicine, it's like I need that article you mentioned that this other person wrote about being a healer and charging for your work, or working with the medicine and following that path, because I see this discussion all the time. I'm asking myself all the time. Such a beautiful journey. And I wanted to ask you on the on the impact of COVID on the workplace, since you were working since 2019. Like what have you seen? How have you seen COVID impacting the workplace and the environment you were in? I know you had to work on yourself, you had other things going on, but you had some kind of sample data set from 2019.
Well, what I've noticed is there's been a slow getting back to doing in-person events or group events. I've noticed those who were more introverted became even more introverted and comfortable with not getting out. Those who had any type of event that created anxiety, depression, including myself, it became so much easier to not need to go out, and we're able to literally say, I need to take another remote day, or can I work from home? The ease of not needing to connect has been enabled. So there's been enabulation of, and that's probably not a word, but
it works.
Enability of being able to not see a human being in person. It's completely possible and still be able to provide for oneself, unless you have children or a sick loved one, or a pet, I would say. And even then you can still finagle around and make it work if needed. And so you actually have to get into some discomfort for some people. Then you've got your other people who are extremely excited to be social, but some feel very uncomfortable because socially they're awkward now, or don't know how to perform anymore in a group. And then there's so many faux pas, like don't say this, don't talk about that, don't do this, don't do whatever. And so there's a learning curve. And I think that what's really great is just literally, if one can be authentically themselves and be more transparent and just be like, you know what, I feel a bit awkward. It's been a long time since I've been out. Even just by saying something like that, and everybody has a bit more of the opportunity to be also themselves and awkward and kind of tiptoe around some of the things that maybe not tiptoe, literally just like step in and be like, this is how it is. But I've had a few opportunities to lead Blue Lotus ceremonies for women. And I mean, it's been absolutely just enlightening and beautiful to be in groups. And I also did a few somatic movement, rhythm and love ceremonies as well. And it's almost like there's this just desire, but I found that it's certain people. And so how do we get everybody involved feeling comfortable? And I think just wording it like, no matter who you are, we accept you for what and who you are, and you are welcome.
That's a big theme today in our discussion, accepting, So isn't there a song, Come As You Are?
Yeah. Well, I'm in jogging pants and a really cool overthrow, but you can't see the jogging pants.
I mean, this is the video. Well, I can see the jogging pants, no, but Come As You Are. I forgot the rest of the lyrics, but that's sad. But I love you touching on that awkwardness as well. The acknowledging that awkwardness. I think we're in such a hurry to get back to normal that we forget the COVID trauma. I mean, it's not just COVID. It was like a powder keg of emotions that just blew up at the same time as COVID, of different narratives and topics. And we're coming out of something substantial with a need to wanting back to normal. But we have to acknowledge it's going to be awkward. I mean, I know people go to work, they're social people, they come back in the evening, they're exhausted, they're not used to it anymore. It's different, it's awkward, and other people want to move forward, and they're like, but I'm like, wow, you just realize it's different now. We just went through that trauma. We have to acknowledge the trauma. I think acknowledging the trauma is really important. With COVID, it's easy to want to move forward and not acknowledge the trauma. But I think that's risky too, because you're like, well, no, things are different. It's but in a good way, they're different. I'm going to embrace the difference. Yeah, come as you are. Respect, it's acceptance is a big thing.
Well, I think in 2016, I had a seizure where things shifted for me significantly. And that was where I first got diagnosed with epilepsy. I wanted to get back to the woman I was, and I could never access her. I think that acceptance, that surrendering, I think that's something that is really well learned also with psychedelics, or even just with personal integration. Sometimes there are people who will never be able to experience psychedelics, but there can be life integration. So when you go through something extremely traumatic, sometimes we just wish life could just be back to where it was. And the thing that I have continued to learn through every single time something dramatically shifts my life is, if I can recognize it or even look at it sometimes literally, like I mentioned, as a death, as a disintegration, as almost like something, recently I just saw a fox that was dead on the road. And 6 months previously, I saw my first live fox in the forest. And then six months later, I see a dead fox on the road. I was like, what's that signifying? And then for 2 weeks, the theme of death, rebirth kept coming up over and over and over again. And it's just that continually, like, how many times have you died? How many times have you chosen to be reborn? How many times have you chosen to move forward? And one of the key things is being in the present moment. The living in the past can create so much depression. Living in the future can create so much anxiety. Yeah. And when we stand in the present, that's where it's almost like you're in the center of the tornado or the hurricane. You're in the eye of the storm, and you're able to be that calm center and just be able to take that moment and breathe and say, right now, everything's okay. I'm okay. It's going to be okay. And so that's why I say stillness is one of the greatest integration tools and keys. And also just recognizing it's not going to be the same ever. Like even now, right now it's different. Now it's different. Now it's different. Now it's different. It's going to be different every single effing second, because it is. And what's so cool about it is embracing it. And once we embrace it and we surrender to it's not going to ever be the same. Well, what am I going to do with this life now? Yeah. What do I want to do right now that will enhance my life for my highest good and the highest good of all those that I come in contact with? And sometimes we forget, and sometimes we go back into our, whatevers and the worrying mode or the sad one, and it's okay to do that. And then breathe, go back to our tools, and just recognize, am I okay right now? Yeah. Yes.
I mean, even the worrying modes come to pass. I mean, I think it's when you think they don't come to pass, they don't necessarily pass, but it's kind of ironic. But knowing that they will pass a lot of time helps letting them pass. I know for depression, when you're stuck into that hole, it's not always clear that you're going to be out of that hole someday. And it's not going to be always like that. But knowing that impermanence, I think it is really important. to heal, to the healing process.
Yeah. The one thing to bring up quickly is the highest rate of deaths by suicide are actually middle class, middle-aged white men. And I usually bring that up when I speak. And one of the things is there's a loss of hope, or what is my life about? And that's one of the things when I work with clients, especially if they're male, when they come to me, most men that look for help have reached like their ultimate, like, it's either they want some, they have to have some kind of huge life shift, and some look to death for that shift. And so the prevention of that is helping with, finding what brings them joy, what brings them flow. And many times they can't find it anymore. But that simple thing of this will pass, you will make it through this. And getting through the malaise, the feeling of not feeling anymore. But anyone that I know that I've met who's been depressed, they made it through it.
Yeah.
Including myself. And but it's literally like in the deepest, darkest, most the time where you're at the most darkest, deepest time is where you can't think usually, and you think it will never, ever, ever, ever end. But my friend, it will. Just hold on during that moment. And sometimes some of those darkest, deepest moments are some of the most clarifying moments. And there are those who say that those who have witnessed that type of darkness are those who are able to witness some of the most joyful as well, because to witness such dark, one would not even be able to understand such joy and light without witnessing such darkness.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Like that's yeah, I hope people listening out there, if you feel alone, if you feel it will never end, please, like, that's really important. I mean, there are tools. There are tools you mentioned, breathwork, and like people can tell you all the tools. That's the thing is people can tell you the tools. Sometimes it's like you eventually have to find your way, find your tools, you have to feel it. Somebody telling you that, and I mean, there's tools to help people feel. But thank you.
Well, sometimes your brain's not communicating in a way, and I mean, I had all the tools back in 2016, but I became highly suicidal and couldn't feel joy, and the seizure created where my brain wasn't connecting correctly. I mean, there were some days where I literally was underneath my bed. I'm an adult mom, banging my head on the floor, screaming. I mean, it was ugly. It was really, really, really not okay. The meds I was taking for my first medication for epilepsy was horrifying. Rage, just really ugly. And so, you've got people who are going through something similar, bipolar, schizophrenia, non-neurotypical, autism, or some type of great loss where they're like, I've never felt pain like this in my life before. But you know what? You're not alone. And there are other people who have felt something similar. It's not the same. They will never know what you feel, and yet you're not alone. And the other thing that I always love to share is if someone comes to mind, especially if they come to mind more than once in one day, reach out, because you don't know. You think, oh, I don't want to bother them. No, you have no idea. Usually it's an energetic pull that this person wants some type of connection, or just needs a little bit of a uplift at that time.
Thank you. That's such a great tip. Yeah, somebody who was depressed gave me who was going through depression gave me the same tip. It's like, hey, reach out. You might not know what to say. Just reach out and say hi. Ask them how they're doing, and then you'll see.
You came to mind. You're coming in really strong right now. Just want to let you know that I love you. I care about you. How are you?
Yeah. I have dreams sometimes about people, and then I'll reach out to them the next day. It's like, hey, you were in my dream last night. Just, it's usually it's not the weird dreams I do that
Right, right,
for.
right.
It's
Yeah,
like
no, I know. I do that.
it's like it's weird enough as it is with my flute Fridays. I don't need to, anyway, no, this is good. I think I'm looking at my notes right now just to see if we covered everything. Was there anything else we haven't covered that you wanted to cover? We're approaching time here.
Yeah, just real quickly, I have some people who reach out to me and are like, I tried microdosing, it didn't work for me, or it made me really anxious, or I got really angry, or I felt nothing. And a lot of times for microdosing with psilocybin, at least, it's a 3-month protocol for the majority of people, and that's the amount of commitment you'll want to make, is a 3-month commitment for the dendrites to have time to grow and communicate and connect. The other is it might be the type of mushroom. There are certain mushrooms where I would feel high anxiety or anger, or it was the amount I was taking. So be patient, and the lowest amount for the greatest benefit. Don't think microdoses, 0.25 milligrams up to maybe maximum 300 milligrams. Those that are autistic, they might take more, but they would want to definitely work with a practitioner. And then I have an Integrate journal that teaches about and helps you keep track of microdosing. And as you mentioned, microdosing Wachuma is very heart opening, and I love Wachuma as well. I need to move to a state where I'm able to to work with the medicine more, but currently this is where I'm called to be. But I do help people that are working with psilocybin or Wachuma. I just personally, I don't, I'm not going to provide you with the medicine or people that provide you with that medicine.
Yeah, that's the right legal way.
Yeah, currently.
Yeah, it's like I don't provide any medicine, but I can tell you,
But I can help with integration. I also help with post journey and work.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people don't know that. I mean, integration post journey is not just 2 weeks. I've literally had one of my journeys come full circle after 6 months, where at the 6-month mark, all of a sudden something went boom, and I literally went, that's part of my journey 6 months ago. And it's like it fully came to fruition, and it felt done, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the integration is you got to put in the work, and then I feel like you got a message download too during the ceremony. I mean, there's different facets. Like the message download, it might take years to decrypt the message. Like some messages I got in my first ayahuasca ceremony, it took 2 years to figure out. Oh, that's what that number was. But then the work, and then you've got, when you were talking about the people thinking about, not worrying about what other people think. And one of the big challenges people have when they come back from a microdose experience, or, whether it's like ayahuasca or psilocybin, it's like, people still look at them like they were before the experience and expect them to behave the same way, but they're coming back and their brain has been rewired. Their brain waves have been normalized. They've got new pathways. Their brain plasticity has improved. And so sometimes like the supporting community around the person that comes back to a journey, to those people who are welcoming people back, they're very important in the integration period. Like it's really important that they can have a supportive community that doesn't expect them to be the same person they were when they left. I mean, I'm finding that a lot of time, like that's another thing like people need to deal with.
Absolutely. The last interview I had, Spirit Bird is the host, and she mentioned that she and her partner are putting together a workshop and training on how to work with psychedelics and not break up with your partner afterwards. Because literally, you may come back completely shifted in ideals and belief systems. There are many who are maybe highly religious, go and do a ceremony, or there may be some who go and do macro journeys and find out about, things that happened in their past that come to light, complex traumas they didn't know about, and then they've got to unpack that. Or there may be some who go and nothing happens and they were expecting something else, or there's just so many. That's what's so amazing about the medicine is the surrendering is coming up again, like surrendering, saying, this is my intention, and please allow whatever's for my highest good to come to light. And then if there is, within the community, that's what's hard, is with so many places having it be illegal, it's hard to talk sometimes to your main support system, especially if there's biases or belief system that it's not okay. Me being a microdosing practitioner, I've loved being able to speak. At first, I felt very close to speaking about what I did to my parents, especially because they grew up in the hippie era and they're extremely religious and orthodox. But they already know about my little brother's friend who greatly shifted through psychedelic therapy. But being able to tell them, this is the client that's coming to me, of course, not their name or where they live or anything, but this is why they're coming and asking for microdosing help, whether it be paranoia or complex trauma or dyslexia or ADHD, or they've had, sexual abuse, or they're great heart, they're a cancer patient, or there's just so many other, so many reasons why someone comes to microdose and to also seek out integration services. By telling my family members and my parents about the good things that have come through and why they came to me and what results have been happening about 2 to 3 months afterwards, it's greatly helped shift their perspective of what psychedelics can do for people, and that it's not just about raves and jumping out of windows if you do LSD and being, like a total hippie. But there is a lot of peace and love.
Yes. It always comes down to love, and we're all connected.
And you can't get away from it.
But like the way you feel it when you're on those journeys is in a very transcending way. It's in a very like universal truth kind of way. And it's a way that is a good, healthy way to lead the world as well. And, and then you tie back to the hippies. But, I think we're trying to be a lot more methodical now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can also tie it back to the gurus and even to Christ. I mean, Christ said, be like me, be like my Father, be like, if we're all like me, we're all one. And he would literally say that.
Yeah.
And the teaching was to love one another as I have loved you, that we may all love one another. I think that's why all of this resonates so easily for me and feels so at home. Every time I'm in deep in medicine, I'm like, what must I do? It's like, be you. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, who am I? You are. And sometimes it'll be about like Christ or something. And I'm like, okay. But then it's also happy and joyful. But I see people who hurt me and I cannot feel, I don't feel hate towards them. I feel love for them. And you come out of it confused, like, well, but I've had so much time to feel so mad at them, and that's what I'm used to. So how can I, and also all the people around you that want to be your support system to help you in that hating of one's person. But when you've been shown who this person is in their highest essence, there is no more the ability to hate that one person. Granted, you still got to have boundaries. Yet when you see people for the truest, highest, quote unquote, essence of oneness, of the essence of love, of we are all connected, well, then I'm connected to that person that hurt me. I'm connected to that person that loved me. I'm connected to myself. I'm connected to all of these. So when I can love myself with the most love that I have and release the shame and guilt, then I must also release, the blame and the shame of the one who has harmed me. I must also love and continue to accept the one who has loved me. And when you can marry all of that together, I think that there's even more self-acceptance and the ability to be one with all. Some people don't like it when I talk about things like that, because there's been some people who have hurt me and my family a bit. But I still have been able to really psychedelics and being deep in especially ayahuasca. I was gifted the ability to really see something beyond what I believe is within me. And it was so sacred that I came out of it just going, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful.
Well, I'm glad you're here and you're able to share your experience, and you went through all that journey too. I think it's another question people have sometimes. It's like, how can I get right where you're at today? It's a journey. Like everything that was before you made you, right? I'm curious what your perspective is on that, but it's like, would you do it, like, could you be where you're at earlier in your life? Could you speed up that process?
No, and that's what's annoying. I get so annoyed. Even now, I'm like, I want home. I want my own home. And I'm so fortunate. I recognize that. I'm in my parents' home right now, and I've been sheltered. There's women who go through what I did that don't have a home. And I have that. And yet I've been calling in a home for myself and providing for my family. And I literally keep being told, just be still. It's going to work out. It's going to be okay. And I'm like, okay, just bide your time. Your family's safe. I'm in an environment where there's horses, and my brother's here right now. He's a falconer. So there's hawks and there's dogs and chickens. And, we're surrounded by a lot of good right now.
Yeah.
A healing environment. And, but yeah, it's so annoying when one wants to jump, tracks to, and now I'm better. And that's where I think sometimes the overuse of psychedelics happen. So. Yeah.
Well, you're doing a lot of good work. I was very impressed before. I'm even more impressed now. And so, I look forward to hearing more from people you're helping, and more of you on the podcast, and more of that catching to help you, manifest in due time at the right moment when it's due, in the right stillness. But, all of this to be manifested for you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your journey. Thank you for sharing so much and being so vulnerable today. I really appreciated your time. Thank you.
Well, thank you for holding space in a place where I can be myself.
Thanks for listening. If you like the show, please subscribe to it on Apple Podcasts, follow me on Instagram at Leadershipedelics, or stop by my website and say hi at fooyad.com. That's F-O-O-Y-A-D. There's a lot going on, and I'd love to hear from you all, the listeners that tune in every week. And if you have suggestions for future guests, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm there, and I'd love to get more guests on the show. Thank you. Have a great day.